OpenAI just changed to the game, or at least they leveled up in the game, as they now have the smartest model, the best model at coding, and they say they've nearly solved hallucinations. 5 new models dropped today. We have GPT-5, GPT-5 Pro, GPT-5 Mini, GPT-5 Nano, and GPT-5 Chat. Seems like they're taking a leaf out of Apple's naming book with some of these models. These models are said to be major improvements in reasoning, code quality, one-shotting complex coding tasks, and providing clear explanations. They're also really good at UI. So will this finally take developers away from Anthropic? I personally think it might. So let's jump in, see what was announced, and also use it. Let's start with GPT-5. Now we'll talk benchmarks in a bit, but the initial improvements are the context window has now doubled to 400,000 tokens, and they say that GPT-5 is the best model for coding and agentic tasks. They actually released a repo where you can see and try all of the things that GPT-5 one-shot, and when you get it up and running, you can see some of these examples here are absolutely insane. The UIs on these look really nice in comparison to what other models would give you. So this one is an FM-inspired page where we have OpenAI FM. Then there's a ball game up here where we can use the arrow keys and things to play around with it. It built a whiteboard out in one shot. You can even see the prompt over here and try this out in GPT if you want. I think all of these examples just show me that GPT-5 is actually really good at UI. These kind of look similar to the Horizon models that were on OpenRouter, but I'm still not sure if they were them. But either way, GPT-5 is incredible at UI, building web apps and things like that. But enough of OpenAI's cherry-picked examples. Let's see how this works out for me. The best part about this is it's going to be really cheap. Well, compared to Opus, it's definitely very cheap. It only costs $1.25 for a million input tokens and $10 for output tokens. Spoiler alert, this beats Opus on some of the benchmarks, and Opus is $15 for a million input tokens and $75 for a million output. That is a whole 7.5 times cheaper to use a model that is better than Opus. To give it its best chance, I'm opening up in Codex here, which is obviously that Claude Code competitor, and we'll see how well it does on the first test, which is the Polygon Ball test. I'll paste in the super long prompt here and hit enter. And you can see it started off with 40 seconds of thinking here, then it started running Git here, and now we're going into a different thing. It said that it's not a Git repository, so I assume it's just going to make one for me, which I didn't even ask for, I don't think, so that is super nice. Then after about 2 minutes, where it did actually look frozen for a bit, but then it all of a sudden just replied to me with this massive block of text telling me everything that it's built. Also used a Perl command up here as well, which was interesting. And then it looked for a few things like apply patch here where the command wasn't found, but it does seem like it has been able to actually update the file. So let's test out how well this did. Now, I would say I am pretty mind blown by what it's generated here. It has done really well at this test. All of the physics seems to be working. All of these balls stay inside of the polygon there. We've got our gravity slider up here. We can go ahead and up all of these values, and it seems like a few of the balls do escape there when we add in loads of them. We can change the spin direction and the spin speed. Everything just seems to be working really well here. As I said, I do really think that they've upped the way that this works with UI, as it always has this nice sort of polished style to its UI. You'll notice that in all of the examples, it looks a bit better than what the previous models have been putting out. So super impressed with the Polygon test here, but now let's actually try it in a real code base. So I've opened it up in a Next.js boilerplate project that I have. It's literally just a Next.js application that also has a backend that uses a database, and it has TRPC as the API layer. There's nothing else in there except for a simple health check. Here you can see I'm going to ask it to create a personal finance management dashboard that offers a detailed overview of an individual's financial health. This dashboard should enable us to effectively track multiple accounts and loads of different things here. The dashboard should include features for monitoring financial goals and all of that. I'm going to hit enter, see how well it does actually taking in the project and what we already have, and how well it does in building out a full application. Well, GPT-5 gets to coding then. I'll mention a few more things they said on their live stream. They said this is going to be a much better model at collaborating, particularly in agentic coding in tools like Cursor, Windsurf, Copilot, and Codex. They said while it works, it'll be able to output its plans, output updates, and also recap in between its tool calls. Relative to past models, they say GPT-5 is way more proactive at completing ambitious tasks without having to pause for your go-ahead or just getting completely confused by the high complexity. Here we go. After about 5 minutes, this is the application that it's come up with. Now, the UI isn't blowing me away, I must admit. I think the cards themselves here look okay, but it seemed to have trouble with replacing the overall theme of the boilerplate. I'm going to test if adding some funds in here works. If I just add in some money, it does seem like everything actually updates well, which means it has picked up that we have a database and a backend there, and it's using TRPC. I have already checked the code, and it definitely is using the backend, so that is nice to see here. and we can just see that the UI, I think it's okay. I wouldn't say it's mind-blowing, but it's definitely better than what some of the other models have given me. Plus, the open source models that I used absolutely failed at this task. I couldn't even get them to write any good front-end code, let alone tie in the back-end. Now, I'm going to give it another shot with a simpler prompt here. I'm just going to say create a single-page application here in a single HTML file, where we essentially just make a version of Flappy Bird. So let's see how well this one does. There we go. It did a bit better at this prompt. It doesn't fully work. The entire game itself works. It just doesn't understand that the pipes need to be aligned for me to actually play this game, so I can't actually get past one point here. But I think overall the graphics and it actually working is pretty impressive. So that was GPT-5, but what about the other models? Well, there's actually not too much to be said about GPT-5 Pro. It just says it's going to be a version with extended reasoning for even more reliable and detailed answers. This is actually in a blog post, and they mention that it's coming soon. GPT-5 Mini, though, is out now, and it's a faster, more cost-efficient version for well-defined tasks, and Nano is the most efficient version and the fastest. As for pricing, GPT-5 Mini is 25 cents for a million input token and $2 for output, and Nano is even cheaper at 5 cents for a million input and 40 cents for a million output. Let's move on to the benchmarks though, as these are super impressive as well. If we start out with coding, on the SWE bench, GPT-5 with thinking gets 74.9%, which is by far the best model. For reference, Opus 4.1 scores slightly under at 74.5%, but the price difference is absolutely nuts. Again, this is nearly 8 times cheaper. Side note, I am a little confused at what scale was being used here on that live stream, because 52.8 is here, 69.1 there, and then 30 is right next to it. I don't know, maybe they should have used GPT-5 to make these diagrams for them. For the smaller models, you can see the Mini still performs great, even better than O3 on some of the benchmarks, and you can see GPT-5 nails the Ada polyglot as well, with a steeper drop-off for those smaller models on this benchmark. For academic benchmarks, on MMMU, GPT-5 beats the previous models with 84.2%. Opus 4.1 actually scored 78% on this benchmark, and on AIME, GPT-5 has completed it. It actually gets 100% when it's given the power of Python. Opus scored 78% on this, and without Python, GPT-5 still wins at 94.6%. Finally, AI might not lie as much. Its error rate is incredibly low compared to the other models, which is really cool to see. It's one of those things that you start to notice when you have a talk to AI about something you know a lot about. You see, it starts to make a few things up. I can't actually believe here that O3 hallucinated nearly 1 out of 4 facts on one of those benchmarks. Wow, that is absolutely insane, and it's good to see they brought that number down. So, there we go. That is what we know about the GPT-5 models. Is this going to convince you to switch over from Claude? I think for that price, it definitely will. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. While you're there, subscribe, and as always, see you in the next one.